let me tell you. But what the Africans in Kemet
Mm-hmm.
did, they actually were able to predict effectively future harvest
Mm-hmm.
based on the inundation of the Nile.
Mm-hmm.
So when the Nile, they actually had cylindrical, something that looked like a well, but it wasn't a well,
Mm-hmm.
that tied into the Nile. And as the Nile overflowed,
Mm-hmm.
they had markings
Mm-hmm.
that would indicate how many hectares of ground would be inundated,
Mm-hmm.
and therefore they could project
Their
how much
harvest.
meat
Mm-hmm.
farmers.
Mm-hmm.
Come on now.
Yeah,
We some
and
bad
that's way back. Yeah.
So we're
The Afropreneur Podcast, a podcast for African entrepreneurs, presents inspiring, innovative, and disruptive entrepreneurs from Africa as they share their lessons, insights, and learnings from their unique entrepreneurial ventures. I'll be your host. My name is Ogweno Stephen. Let's roll.
Right. So in this short series of episodes from now and moving forward, we're just gonna start from exactly where we left, which is Kemet and what was there and how people really wanted to be associated with that from all over the world.
yes.
Really tying back into the histories and the knowledge of Kemet. And then we're gonna address that question. Then we'll come back to addressing the other concern of how that spread into the world, and then finalize with a little bit of the concept of slaves in Egypt and how that has been
That's nonsense.
broadly misconstrued.
Mm.
So back to Kemet and its histories.
Mhm.
So in the last episode, where we sort of ended it at from, we're beginning to look at some of the great knowledge that was associated with Kemet and the histories of it. So now let's sort of in the next 3-4 minutes just go through what was it like living and being in Kemet as has been documented in the books, and then how did that influence knowledge across the world? I guess that's the sort of a two-tiered question that we sort of start with, and then we'll slightly address the histories of slavery in Kemet, which is a very misconstrued concept. But first, what was it like, and how did that spread across the world?
Mm.
Mm.
And I visited Kemet some years ago, and that was my second
Mhm.
baptism.
Mm-hmm.
Incredible. When you see the monuments and when you begin to understand what was the quote
Mm-hmm.
philosophy and what was the way of life and the miniature, which is the ancient language, the script that is written on the pyramid texts,
Mm-hmm.
the mathematical papyrus, the papyrus that dealt with logic,
Mm-hmm.
reasoning, ethics.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's more than you can conceive. You're talking about not just an ancient society, but one that was one of the things that made it
Mm-hmm.
allowed it to develop, because it was a continuum. Now we got to
Mhm.
remember we're talking about it started in the land that was called Punt
Mm-hmm.
in Central Africa,
Correct.
and then it goes on to Nubia,
Mm-hmm.
and then because there's more ancient monuments. In fact, there's 5 times more ancient monuments in Nubia
Mm-hmm.
than
And
there
Punt,
was
which
than
is
there
Central
was in
Africa.
Kemet.
Yeah.
Than it was in Kemet. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and they all predate, all
Mhm.
right? So, and they really don't want you to look into what was there, because the interesting thing about Nubia was there was never any Phoenicians, any Greeks, any Hittites,
Mm-hmm.
anything but Africans,
Mm-hmm.
okay? So, when anything you find there, they can't contest it or
Mhm.
say, well, the nose looks kind of, no. It was all
Yeah.
African. That's why nobody talks about Nubia. Seriously. And that's why you don't find about research about Nubia.
Yeah.
In fact, there's a major African American scholar who connected with a Russian, believe it or not, a Russian anthropologist who was very well renowned, who traditionally got all kinds of grants to do explorations in Egypt for all kinds of projects. Historically, she was set, but she got involved with him. Well, she got involved with him because they both had a common interest in the 25th dynasty, okay, which was the last African dynasty, okay? And after she got involved, so she, as successful as she was through the years, when she got with him and she put in for funding for this work on the 25th dynasty, which was the Nubian dynasty, I can't fund you. We can't do this. Seriously. So he and she came together and did it on their own, you know. So just pointing out that in terms of the lineage from, you know, all the way up. The other thing was the environment. The Nile, you know, wow. The Nile was both the river of commerce and also its flooding of its banks was so important for the fertility of the area. So one of the things that allowed them to have such a huge population and development was the flooding of the Nile. Okay. Now, and therefore the agricultural production. Okay. One of the things that blew my mind was they could do, right now, people are heavily into applications and so-called, you know, computer science. And they'll tell you that Africa's development and food supply and agricultural development will depend on technology. Bull. Let me tell you. But what the Africans in Kemet did, they actually were able to predict effectively future harvest based on the inundation of the Nile. So when the Nile, they actually had cylindrical, something that looked like a well, but it wasn't a well, that tied into the Nile. And as the Nile overflowed, they had markings that would indicate how many hectares of ground would be inundated, and therefore they could project how much meat farmers. Come on now.
Yeah, and that's way back. Yeah.
So I'm saying, so the science and technology, like chemistry, the word chemistry comes from the word Kemet. You know, most people even, you know, it's amazing. Like, and look, but think about it. When you go to an exhibit of so-called Egyptian material, think about how well preserved the colors are. Those are natural dyes. If I'm in textiles, which we are, and we tell people we use natural dyes, first thing they'll say, well, are they permanent or are they semi-permanent? And I'm like, what was the sarcophagus of King Tut?
The
color was permanent. You know what I'm saying? Because we're always so wired to what the Europeans nonsense. But no, those, and just for example, Mombasa, I was there recently, and you go to Mombasa and the buildings look so bad because of the salt water, et cetera, and it just tears the paint up. I was telling people were saying to me, you paint every 2 years if you want to look like something. I'm like, what? I said, with all this new technology, all this new science, all this new chemistry, we can't keep paint on the building for over 2 years. Now here, these Africans, 4,000 years ago.
Yeah. Maybe more. And
right.
Paints, details.
Paints, resins,
perfumes today.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oils, perfumes, medical, particularly using natural herbs,
Mhm.
medical products. I mean, but they're papyri that actually, there's the Rand papyri, which is a mathematical papyri,
Mhm.
that actually gives you the formulations.
Yeah.
So all of this stuff, the European, so what bugs me, it makes me crazy here being in Kenya.
Mhm.
When Kemet became attacked, as it was over centuries,
Mhm.
when it finally was overrun, by the Romans,
Mhm.
okay, after the Greeks,
Mhm.
and then after that, the Assyrians and the Arabs, Africans took flight,
Mhm.
okay, went into Nubia, went into Tanzania, went into
Mhm.
Kenya, So what kills me is there is a significant number of people who have original Kemetic ancestry who are here.
Mhm.
But you know what? I've been here 13 years back and forth. I've yet to hear an African here talk about, I want to go to Kemet.
Mhm.
They want to go to London. They want to go to Italy. They want to go to America. They'll
Yeah.
die to go to America.
Mhm.
I've had conversations with Africans here. They just make you sick. They're so American. I mean, like, why do you think I'm here? You think I'm lost? You think I'm 70-some years old and I can't figure out,
Mhm.
I've had an experience that tells me I don't need to be there,
Mhm.
Yeah. So, anyway, back to Kemet.
Mhm.
No, the level of knowledge, was so profound, and it's expressed. And see, as some historians have said, like those edifices that were built on purpose because they knew in the future
Mhm.
that Africans were going to lose their minds,
Mhm.
and that there needed to be
A reminding.
a reminder that, like, this is on the continent,
Mhm.
this is you, this is us,
You did
this is
this.
profound, and we did this.
Mhm.
So now don't be,
Yeah.
but you gotta want, but we don't. It's amazing. I don't know what they think they're gonna find in Italy.
Yeah.
I mean, now everybody else is going to Egypt, meaning from around the planet.
Mhm.
Everyone else is going, to Egypt
Mhm.
to see and
Yeah.
that which is so wonderful and wondrous.
Mhm.
One of the things that personally blew my mind. I mean, it was so much, but one of the things personally was there was a vase made of stone.
Mhm.
It was made of. In fact, I can show you in the book.
Mhm.
But anyway, it's made of a kind of a clear stone. These Africans were able to etch inside of the carved,
Mhm.
very thinly carved vessel,
Mhm.
information
On
carved
the vessel.
inside of the
Mhm.
stone.
Yeah.
Not on the stone, inside of the
it.
stone.
Mhm.
So, and then, so when you look at, mathematics, you're looking at us, you're looking at literature,
Mhm.
you're looking at papyrus, the first, one of the first forms of material for writing.
Mhm.
It's endless. Agriculture, the high level of agriculture. Now let's talk about slavery.
Yeah.
Okay, first thing,
So.
let me just,
Mhm.
first thing, when you get ready to build, let's say if you were a young, someone in a royal dynasty,
Mhm.
and you decided that you were going to have a pyramid built or whatever,
Mhm.
monument built, right?
Mhm.
First thing you got to think about is the social organization required to do so.
Mhm.
The skills is one thing. I mean, you have the world's first multi-genius, Imhotep,
Mhm.
okay, which was a priest and scientist,
Mhm.
and architect. Hello.
Yeah.
Now, so you have the knowledge and genius, but you have to have the social organization to be able
To do it.
to manage 4,000, 8,000 people.
Mhm.
You have to feed these people, so on and so forth. Now, the other thing was there's actual records of payment
Mhm.
to these so-called slaves.
Mhm.
No, so they weren't slaves. Secondly, these projects were done during the in line with the agricultural seasons.
Mm-hmm.
Like right now, people are cutting, or what's the name in your soil, are going through the system of making sure that they can plant, cultivating. All right. Well, the same thing happened there.
Yeah.
So what they did, they organized around the season. So, and I know there's other seasons when there's nothing growing, or you're just waiting for the rain to come.
Yeah.
So during those seasons, they could employ that, thousands of people for what's called civic projects. See, now that's what they call it now. Like in America, if you're doing a major, let's say, quote, social project, they call it amassing and managing the population for a particular civic project. In China, at one point when I think the Russian premier was going to China and it was snowed, they had 6,000 people with little brushes that brushed up, who cleared all the snow.
Yeah.
So that's a social project. Well, these monuments were the same.
Yeah.
They were not, and there was no Jews involved. No Phoenicians.
No Jews.
No
just
Jews.
us.
Just us.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that brings us to a nice close of this bit. Well, that's a cliffhanger actually, because on the next bit, we're actually going to explore this a little bit more on this slavery topic in the next, in more detail, I presume. So we'll sort of end it at that and look into the next episode.
Okay.
Alright, thanks for listening, and that's a wrap for this episode. For more exciting episodes like this, don't forget to follow our podcast, the Afropreneurs Podcast, on all streaming sites, and visit our website at www.ogwenostephen.com. See you on the next one.